The Montgomery County Police Department in Maryland have released body cam footage showing two of their officers berating a 5-year-old who walked away from school. Now, before I show this video, there is no physical violence in this, but it still may be disturbing to some considering the circumstances. Watch this.
Listen to me. How old are you? How old are you?
5.
5. You feel like you can make your own decisions? Huh? You feel like you can do what you want? Are you an adult? Are you 18? So why are you outside of school? Look at me. Why are you out of school? Why do you have people following you? Huh? I don't care if you don't want to go to school. You do not have that choice. You understand? Oh, my life if I tried to do some stuff like that. I would have been beat 9 times before I got home. Don't nobody want to hear that. Ain't nobody even listening. You know why? Because you don't get to do what you want to do. This ain't your world.
No!
Yeah, the thing does come back.
What I'm going to do is we're going to have you go.
Know what? Sit down.
2008 Cadillac.
Sit down.
Shut that noise up! Shut that noise up now! Boy, I hope your mama let me beat you. I swear to you. I'm gonna wear it out.
You better stop trying to get off this seat. Stop it. Stop it. Holiday, can you watch them real quick?
Now, nothing really surprises me anymore when it comes to these sorts of videos, but even this kind of surprised me. The extent to which officers are able to remove their own humanity, or humanity in general, from their roles as public servants that are supposed to be protecting and serving the public. How is berating a 5-year-old going to help him? This is going to lead to deep trauma. This is when kids are the most vulnerable. And there's an assumption here that this kid must be a bad kid because he walked away from school. Maybe he's being bullied. You have no idea why he left school, yet you're treating him like a criminal, like an adult. It is incredible. Now, worth mentioning here, and as I'll get into, the boy was black, the two officers also black. That doesn't mean racism wasn't at play here. Racism still exists in officers of color. There is plenty of data showing this, that they see their role as cops above and beyond any other identity that they have. So I'm going to get into that in a second here, because I do think this plays a part. I think if this kid was white, I don't think he'd be treated the same. And I mean, just based on the evidence that we've seen so far, based on the videos that have come out. There's a video I covered a few months ago now, or maybe last month. A 9-year-old girl, exact same thing, treated the exact same way. In fact, I think more physical interaction was involved in that incident. But 9-year-old black girl treated like she's an adult, a criminal. It's this implicit bias that exists in all officers, regardless of race. Before I get to more on that, though, let me give you more on the fallout from all of this. So this from AP. The boy's mother has filed a lawsuit over the January 2020 interaction. Lawyers for the child's mother, Shanta Grant, said the video shows the officers treating her son as if he were a hardened criminal. They said Grant is seeking justice and fair compensation for the trauma he endured. A police department spokeswoman told the newspaper that the two officers in the video remain employed by the department after an internal investigation. A thorough investigation was conducted of the entire event, the department said in a statement. Montgomery County Executive Mark Elridge said in a statement Friday that he directed the county's police chief to revisit training for how officers are expected to interact with children. Our police officers are not social workers, psychologists, or therapists and should not be giving advice or direction on parenting. Police duties should end as soon as school personnel are present to take over care of a child. This is how it should always be done. There really is no reason at all for a police officer to respond to a 5-year-old who left school. That should be dealt immediately with social workers, psychologists, therapists, anybody else except the police. Why do you need the police going after berating a 5-year-old? There has to be a completely different approach to policing. There is no reason at all why police should have been called in this situation. Now, more on the implicit bias. So there is a great article here from Vox from 2016. I will link to below the video. There's a lot more data here than I'm going to quote, but let me just give you a piece of this. Over time, police officers are effectively conditioned toward implicit bias. When cops are thrown into situations every day in which black people are viewed as criminal suspects, they begin to identify people's race as an indicator for crime and danger. Quote, just by virtue of watching the news every night, you learn the unconscious bias because you will always see young black men being connected to criminality, Richardson of the UC Irvine School of Law said. Police officers are engaging in proactive policing in urban neighborhoods that may be majority non-white, and as a result, they're constantly practicing the association of non-white with crime. Adam Waits, a social psychologist at Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management, pointed to the concept of de-individuation, which says that people lose their sense of self-awareness while in groups. This changes the self-identity of all police officers, regardless of race. So black cops may think of themselves as members of the police department rather than members of a certain race while on duty, making it easier for them to act in ways that discriminate against members of their own race. Quote, when you're talking about police interactions, in many ways the color blue becomes more important than black and white, Parker of the ACLU said. People identify more with their role as a police officer and all of the cultural things that entails more than their race. And when you think about it, it really isn't all that surprising, because at the heart of many of these issues in policing is police culture. Regardless of training, regardless of anything else, it's the culture of policing that allows this sort of behavior to continue, and not just allows it, but encourages it. Because when you have officers, there's countless stories about this. When you have officers who actually want to do good work and they call out situations like this, they call out their fellow officers, it's not the officers involved in these situations that get pulled. It's the ones that are calling it out. They're labeled as rats, and then they're removed from that department. This happens again and again and again, where officers who actually want to do good work are pushed out of the force. So you encourage this sort of behavior. They all have each other's backs. And I guarantee you, they're finding a way to justify this. None of the officers in this situation were suspended, no action taken. This happened a year ago. They saw this interaction as perfectly fine, berating a 5-year-old. So it's an issue with the culture. And which is why, if the quickest way to fix these problems is to not have the police appear in situations like this. Don't call the police when a 5-year-old leaves school. You can call anybody else. Same with mental health calls. The police should not be arriving to those calls. They have a role when it comes to violent crime, when it comes to, solving murders, but when it comes to interacting with the public, there really should be limited interaction because of how often these sorts of situations happen. It is crazy to me that they were able to do this and think it was perfectly normal. This is perfectly fine to treat a 5-year-old this way when they had no idea why he left school. They don't know what's going on in his life. This is why you need psychologists, therapists, social workers, anybody else to deal with a situation like this. Take the cops out of it.